So it's about blending faith with innovation, right? And Saudi Arabia is using a powerful suite of artificial intelligence tools to ensure that the Hajj journey is safe and secure and more spiritually enriching. I asked myself this question before, and I've often wondered, is there such a thing as a work-life balance, or is it work-life integration?
Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to the fourth episode of SPE-KSA Podcast Journey, where we dive into various topics and we host guests from different fields. I am Hadi Al-Isa, the moderator of today's episode that we're going to talk about digital transformation. And it's my absolute pleasure to introduce our distinguished guest, Dr. Basma Al-Buhairan, a transformative leader whose impact spans across different sectors that covers healthcare, education, business, and innovation. So, حياك الله, Dr. Basma.
Allah يحييك يا أخت هديل, and it's a pleasure and honor to be here with you this afternoon on this podcast.
So, Dr. Basma, thank you for taking the time to join us. We're so honored to have you. And to start our episode today, let's talk about your career. You're spanning from healthcare and academia, moving on to technology and innovation. Can you tell us more about your journey? How was it actually started? And how was your early experience at your career change the way you are seeing digital transformation out of today?
So I think first off, I have to let you know that I never planned my career. It all sort of happened probably by chance and also opportunities. So my career is very firmly rooted in healthcare and academia. My academic pursuits included a bachelor's in clinical laboratory science, also known as medical technology, from King Saud University. I have two masters. The first one is in molecular biology from Brown University. My second master's is in public health from the University of Sheffield in the UK. And my PhD is in public health and health services research, also from the University of Sheffield in the UK. Now, having said that, growing up, science and health weren't really my calling. I was more interested in humanities and arts and even journalism. However, based on my father's wise counsel and wisdom, he's one of my role models, as is my mother as well, but both in different ways. He advised me to go into clinical laboratory science, medical technology. So I began my career at the National Guard Hospital in Riyadh, which is referred to as King Abdulaziz Medical City, Riyadh, as a medical technologist. And then I transitioned into a leadership role within the Department of Pathology and Laboratory Medicine. And then I also transitioned into a different leadership role, which was basically in medical services at National Guard. My career trajectory continued to take off, and I moved into other roles in outside National Guard Hospital. So, for example, I worked at IBM, and at IBM I was the healthcare and university relations lead. And then I decided to move back into healthcare operations, where I became deputy CEO of King Abdullah bin Abdulaziz University Hospital, which is part of Princess Noura University. And as deputy CEO, when I was deputy CEO at that time, I was involved in the commissioning, pre-commissioning, commissioning, and setting up of the hospital, as well as establishing the research center at Princess Noura University. Thereafter, I decided to still continue in healthcare, but from a different lens. And so I moved into, I worked at SAGIA, which is now referred to as the Ministry of Investment. And at SAGIA, my initial role was I was leading healthcare and life sciences. So I was very instrumental in attracting healthcare and life sciences companies into the kingdom for them to make investments in Saudi Arabia. Thereafter, I moved into an advisory role at SAGIA. I was an advisor to His Excellency the Governor at that time. And then when SAGIA was dissolved, it became the Ministry of Investment. I was an advisor to His Excellency the current Minister of Investment. And now currently, I'm the Managing Director for the Center for Fourth Industrial Revolution in Saudi Arabia, which is a World Economic Forum affiliate center.
That's really insightful, Dr. Basma. It's honestly interesting to see how your the foundation of your early career, it's still inspiring you. So as you are moving on from healthcare into the technology, what was your biggest challenge, or what were the key lessons that you have learned throughout your journey? And how does this experience prepare you at your current role in C4IR?
So I think every role that I've gone into had its own set of challenges. So I'll give you one example. I became the laboratory operations administrator at a very young age. Not that I'm old now, but I was much younger than I am right now. And I only had a year and probably a half of hands-on clinical laboratory experience. And to me, that was insufficient to me. However, the CEO of the hospital saw something in me and believed in me and appointed me into this role, which I ran for 5 years. And then I was also asked during that period to set up the clinical labs for National Guard when they opened up their hospitals in the Eastern region, for Dammam and Al-Ahsa. And I also ran them in addition to my main role in the Central region. So when I took on that role, I can tell you the first year was extremely challenging. This was back in the year 2000.
Getting out of your comfort zone.
Everything I've done has been out of my comfort zone. I've never done anything that's been in my comfort zone, which is a bit unusual for me, I think. But I encountered so many different challenges, and what I learned over time is that as you mature and as you evolve, you just become more resilient and you learn how to develop thick skin, which is, I think, more difficult for a woman, perhaps, than, it might be for, a gentleman. And I learned how to, manage and handle different difficult situations, and they were varied. But I also think a big part of me enjoys challenges. I relish on challenges. I never say no to a challenge. I'm not sure if that's a good thing, or a bad thing. And as I reflect on my experience, there's a poem that I read when I was in grade school. I grew up in the United States. I spent my informative years there. And Robert Frost published a poem in 1915. And this poem is called The Road Not Taken. And it essentially talks about two roads that diverged in a yellow wood. And I took the road less traveled. Meaning that everything that I have done in my career, as I reflect on it, I've always taken the road less traveled. So I've always embraced the unknown without letting that fear get to me, which is very, very, important. So I ventured into areas and sectors that were very unfamiliar. And I didn't have a mentor. I had my role models been my father and my mother in different ways, as I mentioned earlier. And so I had to chart uncharted territory on my own and figure things out. And so that has made me more resilient, more agile, and it's developed my character as well. In addition, throughout my career, a recurring theme has been collaboration. And technology has also been kind of throughout my career as well in different ways. But with collaboration, which is not easy, It's sometimes it's difficult to collaborate within one department, let alone across departments within an organization, let alone cross collaboration across different, organizations. But I've always been a believer in that I can't do things alone, and no one can do anything alone. You have to collaborate, and your right hand needs to speak to your left hand, and vice versa. And so you need to be able to rally people, around you. You need to create a sense of purpose, a sense of urgency, have that, unified vision that you all, aspire to, and you need to persevere. And teamwork, you need to persevere to be able to do teamwork and to collaborate with individuals. So as I um, moved up in my career, I realized that continuous learning and having a global perspective are also very important attributes for me. And these helped me throughout my career, and especially right now in my role as leading C4IR Saudi Arabia. And throughout my career, what I found to have helped me throughout any challenge that I have encountered is being authentic and being resourceful, which means being selfless and helping others, even when you're not expecting anything in return. And having a value system that is essentially sort of, my compass. It's my moral compass that drives me. And that has always helped me as well in tackling challenges and overcoming any sort of challenge. So all of these different attributes that I spoke about, I believe have helped me in my current role, though I never really thought about it, to be honest with you.
It's clear that, honestly, the adaptability and cross-functional thinking or cross-functional opportunities that you are getting have shaped your personality and open door for different, let's say, opportunities. And so, how are you balancing between work and life?
I asked myself this question before, and I've often wondered, is there such a thing as a work-life balance, or is it work-life integration?
That's really interesting.
I tend to work a lot. My mom likes to say that I'm a workaholic. I enjoy what I do. I've always enjoyed, every role that I've had, I've enjoyed doing, and I've always been fully committed.
So you found yourself in that path.
I did. But what do I do now? To help me feel more grounded, I do yoga,
MashaAllah.
which I, really enjoy. And it just makes you, I think, more disciplined. And it just grounds you more.
Gives you calmness,
It gives you calmness. But
connecting to the inner self as well.
yes,
Yeah.
but I think I'm a very calm and collected person by nature. And that's what many people have told me. So even in very difficult situations, I tend to be calm and collected, which is very important, I think, when you're a leader. And something else that I like to do is I have 5 nephews and a niece, and so I enjoy spending time with them. That's like my free time, but I also learn from them, right? I'm a believer in lifelong learning, and I'm a believer in you're never too old to learn. And it's amazing what you can learn from people who are younger than you
Yeah.
by decades. And so I embrace all of that. And, to me, that it just works out, very well in my life. And I like to read as well.
And I totally agree with you, especially when we are dealing with kids. We are learning from them a lot. So they are here to help us to learn and to grow and to discover our, let's say, strength and weaknesses and work on ourselves to be a better version of ourselves in the future. So, Dr. Basma, now let's take a step back. I'm curious to know what what's actually inspired you to move from healthcare into the world of innovation and technology? And in a better way to say, what was the tuning point, or let's say the moment of realization that sparked that shift?
So maybe let me go back to my childhood. When I was a child, I used to watch The Bionic Woman. I don't know if you've heard of The Bionic Woman,
What is it?
Hadil. So it's basically The Bionic Woman was a show that I used to watch in the 80s. And the actress was Lindsay Wagner. And she had a fatal accident. And then she came back to life. And they put in electromechanical devices. I think it was one of her arms and her two legs and her ear. And so she was a secret agent. And because she had these electromechanical devices, she could do all sorts of wonders because she went on these secret missions for the government. So I used to be mesmerized by her because she had powers that humans didn't have.
Yeah.
Okay. And I used to think I was Bionic Woman.
Wow.
Okay. Meaning, when I reflect on this, I was very ambitious, very bold, and the impossible is possible.
You turned on your inner power.
Exactly. And I used to also watch another show, but it was a cartoon called The Jetsons. And The Jetsons was a cartoon that was in the future of 2062, where they had smart homes. They had vertical houses, apartments. They had flying cars, like flying saucers. George Jetson, Jane, his wife, Rosie was the robotic maid. And then there was Judy was the wife. I forget the name of the daughter. And then there was Elroy, the son. And so it was kind of like utopia, right? The Jetsons, they lived in an apartment high up in the sky. They had a smart home. Everything was electronic, 3D printing, etc. So technology.
Yeah.
Right? And this only really occurred to me, I think, after I took on my role in C4IR Saudi Arabia, where in thinking about and reflecting on my entire career,
it gives you a flashback on what you were saying in the future.
Exactly. And so to answer your question, because I'm a person that loves challenges, I thrive on challenges. So it's a combination of my own personal ambition associated with a desire for taking on greater challenges and to also make a broader impact as well.
So I think just to cap on what you're saying is basically, I'm a big believer what we are living right now, or let's say what we are seeing, what we are imagining, it's coming in the future. And this is what we're seeing when you are during your childhood. So you were seeing the reality of what you are working right now at C4IR. That's really interesting.
Exactly. Although, I remember as a child, I used to ask myself, when is this going to happen? Am I going to be around to
But
actually
you saw it, right?
see
In
this?
reality.
Well,
Yeah.
some of it, not all of it, but we don't have flying cars yet.
So moving on, or let's say speaking about the transformation, we are seeing right now Saudi Arabia is undergoing a big shift with the Vision 2030. So we are moving from oil-based economy into the world of focusing on knowledge, innovation, and technology. And we've seen a lot of, let's say right now, the advanced technology and the AI are becoming a crucial part in our daily operation in majority of the industries, especially when we're talking about energy, infrastructure, or even mega project. So the question now is, how is AI being applied to improve the operation, increase the efficiency, and drive innovation for oil and gas sector, or even infrastructure?
So AI is expected to contribute to about, I believe, 12% of national GDP by 2030. Now, AI is actually playing a very interesting role and how Saudi Arabia is actually rethinking energy, both in oil and gas and also in renewables. And so companies like Aramco use AI to predict equipment failure before it occurs. Another example is they also use it to optimize the way that they extract oil from the ground. So it's really helping them to work more efficiently as well as more safely. Now, by leveraging both AI and big data, the energy industry can actually optimize many processes, not only to increase efficiency, but also sustainability. So, for example, let's take, Aramco, where AI plays a central role in sustainability and production efforts. And since 2010, big data and AI have been leveraged, and they've helped reduce gas flaring by more than 50%, which I'm sure you are very well aware of. And if we take another example at the Abqaiq plant, which is the world's largest crude stabilization facility, AI and machine learning algorithms automatically adjust the oil stabilization process. And this, in turn, improves not only power generation efficiency, but also reduces carbon dioxide emissions. I think another noteworthy example or development in the use of AI is in solar energy forecasting. And there are researchers at King Saud University in Riyadh that are actually testing machine learning techniques to improve the accuracy of solar irradiation forecasts. And so this innovation will allow for not only better decision making, but also resource allocation. And this will ensure that solar energy is utilized to its full potential. And so we're seeing a shift from AI where it's not just about improving what we've done and improving things and becoming more efficient and effective, but it's also enabling us to build a much smarter, more flexible energy system from the ground up.
I believe AI right now is becoming our right hand. So coming from oil and gas sector or from Saudi Aramco, we're using it this in daily basis. So it's helping us to be more agile and to reduce the human errors. And also it's a bigger player when it comes to safety, which is an important subject for an oil and gas.
True, but I think if we look at other sectors, not just oil, the energy sector, oil and gas, and I'd like to just mention this, and this is something that I think is very timely, and it has to do with Hajj, and Hajj season just recently completed, as you're aware. So it's about blending faith with innovation, right? And Saudi Arabia is using a powerful suite of artificial intelligence tools to ensure that the Hajj journey is safe and secure and more spiritually enriching. And so the kingdom is harnessing artificial intelligence as well as biometric technologies and also digital services to overcome the logistical challenges that are encountered, during Hajj, which is one of the world's largest, religious mass gathering. And so I think there are two notable technologies worth mentioning here. One is the Smart Enrichment Assistant, and the other one is the Digital Mutawaf that have been developed and that have been used. In addition, these tools are also complemented by another tool called the Mecca Route Initiative, which is a fast-track immigration service that allows pilgrims before they arrive to Saudi Arabia, to do the necessary tests that are required for them to do using biometric technology and AI, and this would ease congestion before they arrive. So there's also another tool that's being used for pilgrims, and this tool is called Basir, which actually tracks more than 1 million worshippers a day. And this tool is being used to manage crowd flow and to prevent bottlenecks that may occur at the Grand Mosque. In addition, for pilgrimage, There's also been utilization of high-resolution satellite imagery, along with geospatial artificial intelligence and real-time data. And so all of this enables decision makers to manage crowd management, to identify any heat islands, to identify any irregular patterns that may occur, and to analyze environmental and even crowd dynamics. I think what I'm trying to say is that the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, has made and continues to make a strategic investment in artificial intelligence, and thereby the kingdom is setting a global standard for how digital transformation and technology can serve humans and traditions.
Talking about those tools, and currently in your role at C4IR, you are adopting or you're working on AI adoption and technology governance. So can you share with us briefly what does digital transformation means, and why it's so important, and why do we need it with the implementation or with the vision of a 2030?
So before I answer your question around what is digital transformation, I'd like to set the context first. And the context is that in just a few short years, Saudi Arabia has undergone a very remarkable and phenomenal digital transformation, and one that's actually reshaping the very fabric of our economy and society. So in 2018, the digital economy accounted for about 11.5% of the nation's GDP. Fast forward to 2022, that figure climbed to 14%, which is a testament to Saudi Arabia's rapid embrace of technology. 99% of the population have access to the internet. So it's no surprise that Saudi Arabia now really stands at the forefront of e-government services in the MENA region, boasting a 95% maturity rate and making 99% of government services available online, as has been cited in recent reports by the United Nations. Now, the ambitions of the kingdom don't stop at the adoption of technology, because it's not just about technology adoption.
It goes beyond that, yeah.
It goes beyond that. And so when you think about the groundbreaking initiatives like Humane, which is the AI national champion, and the development of the advanced Arabic language models such as Alam, Saudi Arabia is stepping confidently into the role of technology creator and not just a consumer of technology. And so these efforts are actually setting new benchmarks, not just only in the region, but
Even
globally,
yeah.
as well.
We can see that.
Yes. And so at the heart of this transformation is really a shift in mindset. And digital transformation is, one of these buzzwords that used a lot. It gets thrown around quite a lot. But at its core, it's really about reimagining how to do things differently. How do we recreate business models? How do we recreate industries? How do we recreate societies? Right?
It's more basically, how is it linked with the innovation? Because if we're talking about changing things on the method of doing things, it's more of innovations. So how is it actually linked with the digital transformation?
So digital transformation is not limited to marginal efficiency. Okay, that's one thing. It's an enabler of fundamental innovation and disruption. So it's about changing the way we create and we deliver value across every sector. And you need to put people and customers at the center of this of these strategies of digital transformation. And so you need to look at digital transformation very holistically. And it requires an organizational, a cultural, a mindset shift.
Yeah. So taking that, or let's say looking at the vision of a 2030 as a whole, what are the most effective strategies that is currently helping Saudi Arabia to develop and to grow the technology and the innovation ecosystem, especially if we're talking about industries, innovation, or even a startup success story?
So I think what's really fascinating about Vision 2030 is how it's been able to shift the mindset from being a government-led development to something that is much more innovation driven. And so there's this very intentional push to create the right environment for startups and emerging technologies and frontier technologies to thrive, not just through um, policy, but also through infrastructure, capital, and talent. And if we go back to your earlier question about digital transformation, the kingdom has made huge investments in infrastructure and 5G, for example, which is important, as we digitally transform. Instead of me giving you a specific example of a specific maybe industry or startup, I'd like to talk about this more from maybe an ecosystem perspective, because I think it's always important to look at things
At the bigger picture, yeah.
in the bigger picture and holistically. So one of the clearest examples that comes to mind is the garage, which I'm sure you've heard about, which is at King Abdulaziz City for Science and Technology, KAXT. And the garage um, basically spans 28,000 square meters. And the garage was built in what used to be a parking structure. And the garage is a world-class innovation hub and a startup incubator that's designed to foster the growth of emerging and disruptive technology startups in the kingdom. And this is really a collaborative effort. I think if you recall, we talked about the importance of collaboration earlier.
Yes.
So this is a collaborative effort between KAXT, the Ministry of Information Communications Technology, and the Saudi Federation for Cybersecurity, Programming, and Drones. And the garage houses over 300 startups. It's created more than 650 jobs. It's attracted investments of more than 215 million Saudi riyals. And so the garage's aim is really to create this very vibrant entrepreneurial ecosystem, and it provides integrated services and support for startups from ideation all the way through growth. And what makes this special is that the garage is embedded within a scientific research institution, KAXT, which is a national lab and a science and technology park for the kingdom. And so there's this direct bridge between research and commercialization. Founders working in various sectors such as AI, biotech, and mobility. And the startups that are found in the garage are not only national startups, there are also global startups. And there are a number of programs that are offered at the garage, like the Garage Tech Accelerator, the Garage Plus Accelerator, the Garage Incubator, MPV Lab, Gaia, which is for Gen AI, and others like Antler and Boost that support startups at different stages. But let's not forget that this momentum is also supported by regulatory sandboxes, which are very important. And so you have regulatory sandboxes in, for instance, fintech or in mobility or even in health. And there's also a growing venture capital base. So Jeddah, which was formerly known as the Fund of Funds, was established to catalyze private equity and venture capital, right? Here in Saudi Arabia. And it has a portfolio of, I believe, 39 funds. It has assets under management that are 3.3 billion Saudi riyals, and it's deployed 1.1 billion Saudi riyals, and it's created more than 12,000 jobs, and it has supported more than 500 SMEs. So I think what I'm trying to say is that when we talk about innovation, we're talking about having a holistic approach, creating an ecosystem, which is very important, and making sure that this ecosystem encompasses the different pillars that are needed to enable startups to further develop, evolve, and thrive.
That's a really interesting achievement, or say an innovation. Especially, it's not talking about a single success story. It's talking about a governmental initiative that it's focusing on advancing technology, AI, and a different aspects of, let's say, innovations that is working toward the kingdom. So, yeah, my question here for you, Dr. Basma, right now, as you are leading an effort, or you are part of a global dialogue in the World Economic Forum, what digital achievements, or let's say milestone, that it's currently reflect the best for Vision 2030?
So I think if I had to pick one, I would say the establishment of the National Data and AI Strategy, or the development of that strategy, and the establishment of SDAIA, which is the Saudi Data Artificial Intelligence Authority, to drive it forward. And why do I say this? I say this because this really marked a turning point where data and AI aren't seen as tools, but they're seen as national assets that need to be governed, developed, and scaled in a very coordinated, ethical, responsible, and globally competitive manner. And so we've seen impact directly, for example, in the Tawakkalna app, right? That was developed by Sadaya during the pandemic. And now this has, evolved into a much broader digital platform. But also, when you think about the way training is being done, for AI talent, and building out national data infrastructure, right, and the massive investments that the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia has put in place, and also setting AI ethic guidelines that are aligned with international standards, which is also, equally important. And if we just take one small example, NEOM, which is not really a mega project, it's a cognitive city that's being built from the ground up, right? Using data from all the way from managing traffic flow to water usage, and everything is being designed and optimized, in real time. And so this is just a glimpse of how Saudi Arabia sees the future of livability and urban development, or urban, infrastructure. So it's not just about keeping up with technology. It's really about how are we shaping technology,
Yeah.
and how are we using technology safely and ethically, and also to create and deliver the value that's required.
And do we have, like, for example, we know that right now, as you said, with development, or the rapid development of a data, AI, and technology, the policy and governance are becoming a crucial part than ever. So, do we have right now any regulation or a framework that ensures the emerging technology are applied with integrity?
Yes, we do. So tech governance, is one of these areas where the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia has been and continues to be very proactive, and at the forefront. So Sadaya has rolled out the ethics on artificial, intelligence, the ethics principles for AI, and those are actually aligned with global standards like UNESCO, and also OECD, the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development. And the Digital Government Authority as well is also doing a lot around cybersecurity, data privacy, and ensuring that different systems are interoperable and can work together while ensuring they're safe and secure. At the same time, I mentioned earlier when we were talking about innovation ecosystems, the importance of having regulatory sandboxes. And why are these important? Because regulatory sandboxes allow you to test and experiment and refine before the rules, become rules.
Yeah.
Right? So they're a safe space. And so whether this is in fintech or even in health tech or smart mobility, so it's really about how do you balance moving fast, but at the same time, making sure that you're being responsible. And, at C4IR Saudi Arabia, our focus is on, working with multi-stakeholders that include government, industry. And by industry, it's large companies and startups, and also academic and research organizations, where we co-design, we co-create solutions and develop frameworks, right, that align with the national priorities that are set out by Vision 2030 in certain advanced and frontier technologies.
Yeah, and as you mentioned that since we are building those, let's say, regulations and frameworks, and we capitalizing on, let's say, a global standards. So for you, Dr. Basma, as being part of, let's say, the global dialogue with the WEF, it gives you a unique vantage point. So how is the participation in international partnership or even a global forum enable Saudi Arabia to adopt the best practices, or even, let's say, taking the leadership role in advancing technology?
So we are one of 21 affiliate centers that is part of the C4IR network at the World Economic Forum. And we're a think do tank. And we're a convening platform that brings together multi-stakeholders, as I mentioned earlier, and we focus on various advanced and frontier, technologies. Now, I think one of the most powerful ways that we have been supporting Vision 2030 is translating these proven global models into locally tailored initiatives, especially for example, one of the areas we're working on is SME digital transformation and industrial adoption of frontier technologies like IIoT, which is Industrial Internet of Things. Now, because we are part of the network for the C4IR, we don't have to reinvent the wheel. And so one example that comes to mind is our collaboration with the Center for Fourth Industrial Revolution in Brazil, who developed a policy protocol for industrial Internet of Things adoption in SMEs. And they started out with only 10 companies in aeronautics and automotive. And then this was scaled out to over 70 across sectors that included, for example, rubbers, plastics, metalworking, and agribusiness. And the results that they found there were very striking and phenomenal. So, for example, they saw a 21.6% boost in operational efficiency and an average return on investment of over 190%. Okay. So where am I going with this? So what we did at C4IR Saudi Arabia, we took that model, we adopted it here in Saudi Arabia to support the work that the kingdom is doing in developing SMEs and helping SMEs to digitally transform in a way that aligns with Vision 2030 and ensures economic and pushes for economic, diversification and SME empowerment, because SMEs globally form about 90% of companies, right? So we took something from Brazil, we built on it, and we came up with something.
Yeah.
Okay, with something that was probably slightly different. But what we're doing right now, we're developing a platform or a sandbox for SMEs, which is a safe and secure space that allows SMEs to come together, to learn from one another, to collaborate, to share resources, because it will also be an e-marketplace.
This is a local SMEs?
It will also be global.
Oh,
So what we're doing right now is, because, it's not just about us learning from others, but others also learning
from us.
from
So
us.
we will becoming, let's say, a role model for others.
So what we are hoping to do in this specific, with this specific sandbox, which is a peer-to-peer platform, digital platform, is to scale it out globally with the World Economic Forum. So, so it's about, we're constantly learning, contributing, and adapting, if that sort of makes sense. And this goes back to, again, thinking about having sort of like a virtuous cycle where you learn, adapt, reiterate, and you also contribute.
Dr. Basma, as you mentioned, you're learning, adapting, and contributing, and you are more eager into, let's say, strengthening and developing the knowledge within Saudi Arabia. Let's move on from the tech and governance to let's talk about something that's close to our heart, which is basically developing the youth and the next generation for a fast changing and for a technology driven world. So how is the kingdom right now is approaching the development for a young talent, especially for a technology world? And I'm not sure, do we have any, or do you have any recommendation on educational program or upskilling initiative that you find it more practical and impactful?
So the kingdom is doing quite a lot and investing heavily in its talent because the talent are our key asset. They are our national
Indeed, yeah.
asset, as you know. And so they're doing this through a range of, different impactful initiatives in education, upskilling, mentoring, and even entrepreneurship. And all of these efforts align very closely with the goals of Vision 2030. Um, and one particular goal of Vision 2030, which is to build a knowledge based, innovation driven economy. And so, one example that comes to mind is that MISC schools were the first to actually adopt artificial intelligence in the kingdom and to provide individualized learning. And in recent years, the Saudi Data Artificial Intelligence Authority, SADAYA, in partnership with the Ministry of Education and also Mohiba, have facilitated digital training courses in AI and coding for 300,000 middle and high school students. At the national level, there's the National Framework for AI and Digital Learning, which was established in 2018, and this aims to transform education through the integration of artificial intelligence. Now, there have been also different impactful initiatives such as community participations and raising awareness of 4IR technologies, one of which that comes to mind is the Fourth Industrial Revolution Applications Hackathon, and this was organized by the Ministry of Communications and Information Technology and NIDLIP, which is the National Industrial Development Logistics Program. And this event attracted over 400 participants who developed innovative tech solutions that spanned across different sectors such as energy, mining, and logistics. And this was an initiative that the center very much supported. I think another initiative that also comes to mind is we at the center. Enhancing capabilities is one of our key objectives, and we do this through, which is the fellowship program. And we have two types of fellowship programs. One is where we second an individual, a full-time employee of the center, to the World Economic Forum, who spends a period of 1 year focused on a specific area that he or she is involved in with the World Economic Forum and with the center. And another fellowship program that we have, which is also key, is where we have individuals who get seconded to our center from either the partners or stakeholders who we work with, and they spend a year with us where they're immersed into the different activities of the center. So the objectives of this fellowship program is really to help develop future young Saudi leaders to be equipped in the area of 4IR governance and to have 4IR expertise. But I think also seemingly important is also for institutions to also be engaged with and to work with industry, and to also get industry to also develop co-op programs, training programs that are also focused on 4IR.
Yeah, and I'd like to add to that is we have many enterprises within the kingdom and the government who are also interested to develop their employees and sending them for a scholarship for advanced degree, and even taking a leadership program in a different international university such as Harvard. So we're really pleasant about these opportunities that we have it in the kingdom. So talking about, let's say, the development for you as a leader and an educator, what a skill set, or let's say a mindset that you believe it's more important for a future workforce? And how is right now the industries and the institutes are working together to build these skills among our young talents?
So, what I'm seeing here in Saudi Arabia and also globally is that the valuable skills and skill sets that are required are not just technical. Yes, it's important to have digital fluency, digital literacy, data literacy, and AI awareness, etc. Right? I'm not saying technical skills are not important, they are important. However, according to the World Economic Forum, and what I have also seen firsthand, is that it's the human traits,
Yeah,
such as resilience,
so soft skills.
exactly,
Yeah,
adaptability, curiosity, empathy, lifelong learning. These are emerging and these are as critical, if not more, moving now and in the future. And these are skills, if you recall, we spoke about earlier during this podcast. So, as an educator, I found that preparing students for the workplace isn't enough anymore. Okay, so we have to prepare them to navigate complexity. We have to prepare them to navigate chaos, to work across different cultures and disciplines and boundaries, and to also be able to make ethical decisions as well. Um, and why do I say this? Because we are in a world that is globally connected and we are shaped by automation and by artificial intelligence. And so this requires inquiry, reasoning, emotional intelligence, collaboration, and real world problem solving. And so in KSA, we're starting to see how the education industry is becoming, or how, the education industry partnership is becoming stronger. And this is reflecting the shift that I am, talking about. And we're seeing education institutions partnering with industry. And I think it's important for industry to work with educational institutions to co-create curriculum that would be taught by educational institutions, but it would also target what the industry requires,
yeah.
right, which is seemingly important. And we've seen initiatives like the Human Capability Development Program, which is under Vision 2030, is a great example of how policy is actually aligning with practice. There's also Sadaya Academy that offers boot camps, has different programs and different boot camps as well for youth.
Yeah, and honestly, from let's say an experience, I believe that if students can, even if they are in the universities, if they can take a summer job or let's say a co-op, it's really helping them to shape who they are and knowing what actually the career that it fits them more. And we're really here to help them or to empower them to stay inspired and to keep pushing the boundaries to what's possible for them.
Absolutely, I agree with you. But I'd also like to say that I think it's also important to not just focus on undergrad level. When we're talking about STEM education and we're talking about advanced and frontier technology, education also needs to start earlier. So I'm talking about starting from grade school,
Elementary.
elementary, grade school, middle school, and high school. So we also need to be looking at that as well. But at the same time, making sure that we also invest in the soft skills that we spoke
Indeed.
about earlier
Yeah.
that are equally important,
Yeah,
if not
indeed.
more.
Totally agree with you. And Dr. Basma, as we look ahead, we've seen many students, or let's say younger professionals, who are really interested and eager to deal with AI and technology. And honestly, there are a lot of opportunities in the kingdom, and there are so much changes in the horizon. So, a guidance from an experienced leader as you, it's really needed and invaluable. So, what advice would you give to the students who are really interested in that field? And how can they prepare themselves to contribute to Saudi Arabia's innovation journey, especially if we're looking toward 2030 and beyond?
So, my advice to students and young leaders is to view technology as more than a tool. It shouldn't be viewed as a tool, and it's not something that exists alone or in a vacuum. It's really a powerful force that can reshape institutions, economies, and societies, as we also spoke about earlier in human interactions when we talk about societies. And because it shouldn't be looked at as in a vacuum, it really aims to create a broader social contract for in innovation for a much better and more prosperous world. And so the future of work and society right now is being shaped by technologies, as you know, such as AI, robotics, and automation. And the most important thing that young people can do is to engage not only early, but also to engage deeply. And so you learn the tools. Yes, that's important, but you need to go beyond them as well. And so you need to also understand, how is AI being used across different sectors, whether it's healthcare, or manufacturing. How is robotics changing the logistics industry, for example, and how is automation impacting jobs. And so the ability to be able to connect with different disciplines, and also look at the ethical aspects as well, because we need to ensure that emerging tech and frontier tech are adopted and deployed responsibly and ethically. And this is what's going to set future leaders apart. And so in Saudi Arabia, and with Vision 2030, which is a very bold and audacious vision, it has also opened up many opportunities. So we're not just adopting new technologies, we're also building out new ecosystems. And we spoke earlier about creating innovation, ecosystems, building a knowledge-based economy. And so this means that there's a lot of room for young people, not just to participate, but to actually lead. And whether this is through university programs, fellowships, internships, co-ops, innovation hubs, hackathons, community programs, etc. They have a multitude of opportunities that they could actually contribute to.
So it's more of, let's say, it's a ground, or let's say, it's in the individual desire to take the role, or to encourage themselves to keep enrolling on these, let's say, opportunities, and pushing themselves to what's possible in terms of development, education, dealing with people, and even networking.
So I think it's a dual role. There is a responsibility on the individual, him or herself, but we also have a responsibility.
True.
Mentors and leaders and organizations, right? We have a responsibility to also guide and direct and advise, and also create awareness, because they may not know, right?
Yeah.
So it's a dual responsibility, but I think, more and more, as we're talking about lifelong learning, and continuous learning, it's really about, there is a huge responsibility on the individual, him or herself. And I think it's also important to not underestimate the value of creative thinking and human insight as well. So today's world is inundated with algorithms, right?
Yeah.
But skills like storytelling, collaboration,
And even podcast, this is what we're doing today.
exactly,
Yeah.
and critical thinking, these are going to be more important than ever as we move forward.
What gives you the most hope in Saudi Arabia's digital future, and what the world would expect from the kingdom's innovation journey moving forward?
So the kingdom's journey as a whole, not just digital transformation, but overall, is a very compelling success story that is shared by a very bold and audacious vision, strategic investment, and relentless pursuit of execution. And so since the launch of Vision 2030, the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia has made rapid progress, achieving remarkable milestones that reflect both the inclusivity and meaningful collaboration, as well as the sustainability. And so through Vision 2030, we've been able to redefine what's possible, actively diversifying our economy beyond oil, investing in our main asset, which is people, talent, and also laying the foundations for a resilient, a sustainable, knowledge-driven society and a prosperous society.
So thank you so much, Dr. Basma. Thank you for your time and for sharing with us your insightful experience. And it's really incredible and to see how you are, how's your previous journey and how you worked hardly toward this success story. So thank you so much, and we really appreciate your time to join us at SPE-KSA Podcast, and we really hope that our voice goes to the listeners and the next generation for our innovators and leaders. So thank you.
So thank you, Hadil, for hosting me, for having me. It's been an absolute pleasure. I've enjoyed our conversation
Likewise, indeed.
immensely.
Yeah.
And I look forward to further connecting with you and the team.
So at the end, I'd like to thank our SPE-KSA podcast team and our esteemed sponsors for supporting us throughout this journey.